I still remember when things were perfect with Bella. We had built a life together over the years, supporting each other through everything life threw our way. But lately, things were different. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. It started as subtle changes, Bella coming home later than usual, claiming she was catching up with colleagues or stuck in late meetings. Sometimes, she'd come in looking unusually flushed, her hair a little too perfect for a day at the office. I tried to brush it off. After all, we'd both worked hard to get where we were, and her career had recently taken off. Maybe she was just adjusting to new demands. But the small, odd details kept adding up. I noticed she was checking her phone more frequently, her gaze lingering on the screen with a hint of a smile she used to reserve only for me. There were times I'd find her sitting alone in the dark, her face lit by the faint glow of her phone, lips pressed together in a smirk or a slight blush. Whenever I walked in, she'd put her phone away quickly, brushing it off with a nervous laugh. Just a work email, she'd say, but somehow it didn't add up. Bella had never been so guarded. One night, as she was getting ready to go out for another team dinner, she spent what seemed like hours on her appearance. She styled her hair with more care than usual, spritzed herself with perfume she rarely used, and chose a dress she hadn't worn in years. I couldn't help but notice how stunning she looked, and it struck me that it had been a long time since she'd put this much effort into a night out with me. My curiosity was now bordering on suspicion, but I held back, not wanting to jump to conclusions. Still, doubt lingered. I started paying closer attention. She began coming home late, with flimsy excuses like a last-minute work project or an emergency client call. Her behavior grew erratic, as if she were balancing two different lives. There were moments when she seemed completely disinterested in me, barely listening when I spoke. Other times, she'd act overly affectionate, as though making up for some secret guilt. I found myself staring at the ceiling at night, trying to convince myself it was all in my head. But things took a strange turn one evening, the kind of moment that hits like a thunderbolt, shattering any lingering trust. Bella had come home, visibly tired, and went straight to take a shower. As I was straightening up the bedroom, something unusual caught my eye. Inside her nightstand drawer, next to some random items, was a phone I'd never seen before. It wasn't her usual phone. This one was plain and unremarkable, almost easy to overlook if you weren't paying attention. A strange sense of dread filled me as I held the phone. Part of me wanted to put it back immediately, to pretend I hadn't seen it, but I knew I couldn't. My hands shook as I pressed the button to turn on the screen. There it was, a message notification from someone named Mark. The text was simple, but it crushed me. "Can't wait to see you again." I stared at that screen, feeling my heart race and my mind blur. In an instant, everything fell into place. Her late nights, the mysterious messages, the strange behavior, they were all connected to this Mark. I stood there, the weight of betrayal settling over me like a suffocating fog. I'd always trusted Bella completely, never thinking that I'd find myself in this situation. She came out of the shower, and I barely managed to put the phone back in place, acting as if everything was fine. My head was spinning, my emotions reeling, but I decided to play it cool, to act like nothing had changed. If Bella was hiding something from me, I wanted to know exactly what it was. Confronting her now would only alert her. I needed time, a plan. That night, as I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling in the dark, I began to make my decision. I would find out the truth, no matter what it took. I would dig into this secret life she was leading, this hidden part of her I'd never known. I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets she might be hiding, what lies she'd woven into the life we'd built together. In the quiet darkness, I resolved to follow the trail of breadcrumbs she'd left behind. This wasn't just about a single message from a stranger. This was about understanding the full extent of her betrayal. It was time to get answers, and I would make sure to gather every single one before I let her know I was onto her. The plan was set whether Bella knew it or not. Her double life was about to be exposed. The next evening, Bella dressed up again, looking even more carefully put together than before. This time, I watched her closely, every detail amplifying my suspicions. She took extra care with her makeup, checked her reflection several times, and selected a sleek black dress that she'd only worn a few times, mostly for special events. It was clear she wasn't headed to a simple work dinner. When she glanced back at me before leaving, I felt a strange chill, as if I were watching a stranger. As soon as I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I grabbed my keys and left a few minutes after her. I kept a safe distance, my heart pounding as I followed her car across town. Every time she changed lanes or slowed down, I held my breath, terrified that she might spot me. She drove far from the familiar parts of town, finally pulling into the parking lot of a trendy, dimly lit restaurant I'd never seen her frequent. Bella walked into the restaurant, her head held high, an air of confidence about her that was both unsettling and strangely captivating. I parked across the street, my hands gripping the steering wheel as I tried to keep my focus. A few minutes later, I saw him mark. He was tall, well-dressed, with a smug, self-assured look that set my teeth on edge. I watched as he greeted Bella with an embrace that was too intimate to be casual. She smiled at him, the same way she used to smile at me, back when we were first together. They found a cozy corner table, the kind usually reserved for couples looking for a bit of privacy. From my spot across the street, I couldn't hear their conversation, but their body language was enough. They leaned in close, laughing, sharing private smiles. At one point, she reached across the table, placing her hand on his. The sight of it was like a punch to the gut. Bella had a warmth in her eyes that I hadn't seen directed at me in months. There was no mistaking it now. Whatever they had wasn't some harmless friendship. She was in deep, and by the looks of it, so was he. I stayed there, watching as they finished dinner, lingering over drinks as if they had all the time in the world. The night dragged on, every minute feeling like an eternity as I sat in my car, wrestling with the weight of my discovery. A sickening mix of anger and heartbreak churned inside me. It was as if I were watching someone else's life unfold, but the pain in my chest was all too real. Eventually, they left the restaurant together, and I followed them at a safe distance. I was almost certain of where they'd go next, but to my surprise, they parted ways outside, each heading in separate directions. Bella got back into her car and drove home, her expression calm and untroubled, as though she hadn't just shared a romantic evening with someone who wasn't her husband. I parked down the street and waited a few minutes before heading inside. She was already in bed, her face turned away from me, feigning sleep. I slipped into bed beside her, feeling a cold distance between us that hadn't been there before. All the love and trust we'd built over the years felt hollow now, replaced by suspicion and the knowledge of her betrayal. The next morning, Bella was back to her usual routine, acting as though nothing had happened. But I couldn't shake the image of her with Mark, the way she looked at him, the way she smiled. I knew I had to get answers, but confronting her now wouldn't work. She'd find a way to deny it, to twist the truth. Instead, I needed a plan to gather proof, something undeniable that she couldn't explain away. That day, I started researching. I looked up ways to track her movements, apps that would let me monitor her phone without her knowing. I even considered hiring a private investigator, though the idea made me uneasy. But if Bella was living a double life, I had to know every detail. I wanted to uncover the extent of her deception, down to the last lie. I spent hours poring over articles, reading stories of others who had been in my position, searching for ideas on how to proceed. Each story felt like a reminder that I wasn't alone, that others had faced this same gut-wrenching reality. Some managed to forgive, to rebuild, while others couldn't stand the thought of staying with someone who'd betrayed them so deeply. As evening came, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I wasn't going to confront Bella, not yet. I would watch, wait, and collect every scrap of evidence I could find. If she had chosen to live a life of lies, then I would turn her secrets against her, one by one. I'd reveal her double life, piece by painful piece, until there was nothing left for her to hide behind. With a plan forming, I decided that confronting Bella directly wasn't enough. No, I wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions, to see what it felt like to be kept in the dark, to live with the constant doubt that had taken over my life. She was playing a game, and now, so would I. I would do it on her terms, using deception to uncover her secrets, one step at a time. I created an online profile under a new identity, a mysterious, intriguing persona designed to draw people in. I named him Chris, and gave him the kind of adventurous life that might appeal to someone close to Bella. Through a few discreet searches, I discovered her friend Sophia was active on a dating site. I knew Sophia well enough to be certain that she wasn't close to Mark, but she was close to Bella, and if anyone knew about Bella's secrets, it would be her. Once I found Sophia's profile, I carefully crafted my approach. Chris was charming and well-read, with just enough mystery to keep her curious. I sent her a casual, but engaging message, dropping a hint about our mutual friends, without getting too specific. To my surprise, Sophia responded quickly. My plan was working. Over the next few days, our conversations deepened. I dropped small hints about knowing someone who fit Bella's description, a woman who seemed to have it all but had her secrets. Sophia's curiosity was piqued, and she began to share details with me, small things at first, like how Bella often mentioned work dinners that never seemed to add up, or how she'd noticed Bella's behavior changing recently. It was incredible how much people were willing to reveal when they thought they were talking to a stranger. My connection with Sophia grew stronger. She seemed fascinated by Chris, and I used that to my advantage, planting subtle hints and nudging her toward the subject of Bella. I learned that she, too, had her suspicions about Bella's sudden transformations, her long hours, her secretive demeanor. Sophia had even caught Bella texting late at night, looking around to make sure no one was watching before typing her messages. I listened to every detail, storing them like pieces of a puzzle that I would soon complete. Then, one evening, Sophia mentioned a guy Bella had met recently, someone who didn't work with her but whom she had been seeing for a few weeks. My chest tightened. My suspicions confirmed once again. This mystery man could only be Mark. Bella's betrayals were unraveling before me, with Sophia unknowingly handing over piece after piece of the story. With each new conversation, I felt my resolve grow. Bella's life, her secrets, her lies, all of it was coming into focus. And with Sophia as my unwitting ally, I had the access I needed. I was learning about Bella from someone on the inside, piecing together the double life she had woven behind my back. The strangest part was how easily Sophia fell for the act, almost as if she wanted to believe in this new mystery man. It became clear that her loyalty to Bella was weaker than I'd anticipated, and a new idea began to take shape. Maybe, just maybe, Sophia would be more than just a source of information. If Bella had no problem tearing our marriage apart for a stranger, then maybe I'd return the favor by drawing her closest friend into my plan. Our conversations soon took on a new tone. Sophia became flirtatious, openly asking Chris questions about his life, and I fed into her intrigue, giving just enough detail to keep her interested. She started to trust me, sharing even more about her own life, her frustrations, and most importantly, her thoughts on Bella. It wasn't long before I knew almost as much as Bella herself did about the details of her meetings. By now, Sophia was sending me daily messages, hinting at wanting to meet. The irony of it was almost too much to bear. Here I was, pretending to be someone else, weaving a web of deception. Yet every lie I told was a reflection of Bella's own betrayal. I decided to take the next step and suggest meeting in person. I could sense Sophia's excitement, her eagerness to meet the mysterious stranger she thought she knew so well. The meeting would be more than just a way to get closer to Sophia. It was another piece of the plan. If everything went as expected, I would reveal my true identity to her, and if she was as disillusioned with Bella as she seemed, maybe she would even agree to help me expose Bella's double life. It was a strange, twisted game we were playing. But if Bella had chosen to live a life of secrecy and deception, then I would match her move for move. She'd set the rules, but now I was the one in control. And soon enough, the life she'd built on lies would begin to unravel, one layer at a time. The night finally arrived for my meeting with Sophia. I'd planned every detail, carefully choosing a cafe across town where Bella would never think to look. As I waited, I ran over my plan. This meeting wasn't just about unveiling the truth to Sophia, it was a test to see if she would be willing to stand by my side. My entire strategy hinged on whether she'd become an ally or keep her loyalty to Bella. When Sophia walked through the door, I saw a mix of curiosity and anticipation on her face, but as soon as she spotted me, her expression changed. Shock, confusion, and a hint of betrayal crossed her features as she realized that the mystery man was actually me, Alex. She hesitated, glancing at the door as if considering an escape. I stood, gesturing for her to sit down. "Sophia, wait," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Let me explain." She slowly lowered herself into the seat across from me, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. You were Chris this whole time? Why?" Her voice was a mixture of anger and hurt. "I needed to find out the truth about Bella," I replied, leaning forward. "You're her closest friend, and if anyone knew about what she's really been up to, I figured it would be you." Sophia looked away, clearly uncomfortable. "You could have just asked me," she muttered, but her tone softened. "Though, I guess you're right. Bella hasn't been herself lately." I noticed it too. Seeing that she wasn't immediately storming out gave me hope. "I didn't want to drag you into this, but when I saw the messages from Mark, I trailed off, letting the weight of my discovery hang between us. I had to know what was going on." Sophia sighed, her gaze fixed on the table. "She never told me about Mark directly," she admitted after a pause. "But I could tell there was someone. She'd disappear for hours, come back like nothing had happened, and she was more distant, even with me." There it was, confirmation from Bella's closest friend that I wasn't imagining things. "I don't want to hurt you, Sophia, but Bella's been living a double life, and I needed to know the whole truth," I said, my voice steady. Sophia took a deep breath and nodded. "You have no idea how frustrating it's been, seeing her like this. She's been keeping things from me, too, and I've always felt there was something off. But she never lets me close enough to see it." The door was open, and I saw a chance to draw her in further. "Sophia, I want you to help me. I want her to understand what it feels like to be on the other side of this, to face the consequences of her lies. But I can't do it alone." Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw the conflict there. Loyalty to her friend Ward with a growing sense of resentment. Finally, she nodded, her jaw set. "She's hurt you, Alex. And if I'm honest, she's hurt me too. Maybe she deserves to see what it's like." As our plan began to take shape, we spoke openly about the details of Bella's life that Sophia knew. She revealed little things Bella had told her, details about her routines and habits that I hadn't known. Sophia admitted that Bella had been pulling away from everyone, not just me, and it felt as though Bella was keeping everyone at arm's length. This was no longer the Bella she had been friends with for years. I could see that Sophia felt betrayed too, and that bond, that shared pain, became the foundation of our unlikely alliance. Days turned into weeks, and as Sophia and I grew closer, I realized our bond was no longer just an act. She understood what I was going through because she was going through it herself. We became each other's confidants, sharing not only details about Bella but our own frustrations, disappointments, and even hopes. It was a strange, twisted solace we found in each other. Sophia had once been my wife's closest friend, but now she was mine. Finally, we decided it was time to confront Bella. Not directly, we needed to be more strategic. With Sophia's help, I learned about a social event Bella would be attending. She and Mark would be there together, a small gathering where they'd have no reason to hide their closeness. Sophia agreed to join me, not just as an observer but as an active part of the confrontation. The night before the event, Sophia and I met one last time to finalize the plan. Sitting in the dim light of her living room, we went over every detail. But as we spoke, the conversation turned personal, and before I knew it, we were sharing more than just our grievances. Somewhere in our shared pain and our twisted scheme for revenge, we found a strange kind of comfort in each other's presence. We didn't say it out loud, but I could feel it, a connection that went beyond our shared plans. As we sat together in silence, I realized that what I had with Sophia was something real, something I hadn't felt with Bella in a long time. It was a small, unexpected glimmer of hope amid the storm. The morning of the event, I looked at myself in the mirror, knowing that tonight would be the beginning of the end. Bella would face the truth, and she would be forced to confront what her choices had led to. And as for Sophia and me, well, maybe we had both found a way to rebuild in the ruins Bella had left behind. The day of the event arrived, and with it, a sense of grim determination. Sophia and I had planned every detail, every move, like players in a twisted chess game. We weren't just confronting Bella. We were unveiling the tangled web of secrets she had built, forcing her to face the reality she tried so hard to hide. Sophia's support had given me the strength to see this through, and knowing she'd be there by my side made it easier to carry the weight of what we were about to do. As evening fell, I prepared myself carefully. There was a strange calmness in the routine shaving, dressing, making sure every detail was in place. I wanted to look composed, to be in control. This night would be the final step in exposing Bella's lies. Sophia and I had decided not to confront her privately. Instead, we would do it publicly, in front of her friends and acquaintances. If Bella was going to pretend her life was flawless, then we would shatter that illusion in the same spotlight she craved. Sophia arrived at my place an hour before we were scheduled to leave, dressed in a simple but elegant black dress, her expression steady and focused. The nervous energy between us was almost palpable, but there was a silent understanding. We were allies now, bound by a shared betrayal and a need for closure. As we drove to the event together, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of camaraderie with her. This woman, once Bella's closest friend, was now standing with me, ready to face whatever chaos was about to unfold. The event was in full swing when we arrived, a small party held in a stylish venue Bella loved to frequent. The room was dimly lit, with clusters of people chatting and laughing as they sipped cocktails and admired the decor. Bella and Mark hadn't noticed our arrival, too engrossed in each other to see us slip in. I watched them from across the room, noting the way she laughed at something he said, the way she leaned into him as if they were the only two people there. It was both painful and enraging to see her so openly with him, as if her marriage meant nothing. Sophia and I exchanged a glance, a silent confirmation that we were ready. We made our way through the crowd, slowly but deliberately, until we were within earshot. When Bella finally saw me, her smile froze, her eyes widening as if she'd seen a ghost. She glanced at Mark, then back at me, the color draining from her face. It was clear she hadn't expected to see us, especially not together. "Alex, what are you doing here?" she stammered, forcing a smile that faltered under my steady gaze. I didn't bother with small talk. "I know, Bella. I know everything." My voice was calm, but the weight of each word seemed to echo in the silence that had settled around us. People nearby began to turn, sensing that something was unfolding that was much more interesting than idle party chatter. Bella's expression shifted from shock to panic, her eyes darting to Sophia as if seeking an ally. But Sophia held her gaze, cold and unflinching. For the first time, Bella realized that her best friend was standing with me, not her. "Don't look at Sophia for help," I continued, my voice low but firm. "She knows about Mark, about your secret life. She's known for a while now." The people around us had fallen completely silent, their curiosity sharpened to a razor's edge. Bella stammered, her face a mask of disbelief. This isn't what it looks like," she began, her voice trembling. But there was no conviction behind her words, just the desperation of someone cornered. "Really?" I said, my tone sharper now. "Because it looks exactly like betrayal, Bella. It looks like you've been living a double life, lying to me, to your friends, even to yourself." She shot a glance at Mark, who shifted uncomfortably, clearly caught off guard by the sudden public exposure. He opened his mouth, as if to speak, but words seemed to fail him. I almost pitied him almost. Just then, Sophia stepped forward, her voice steady. "Bella, you didn't just betray Alex. You betrayed me too. You lied to all of us." Her voice, once warm and familiar to Bella, had taken on a cold edge that made Bella flinch. "We stood by you, and you threw it all away. And for what?" Bella's mask finally crumbled. Her mouth opened, then closed, as if the words she wanted to say had abandoned her. She looked around, her gaze pleading for anyone to step in and save her from this nightmare. But the crowd only watched, their faces a mixture of shock and judgment. "Alex," Bella whispered, her voice barely audible. "Please, can we just talk about this alone?" "There's nothing left to say," I replied, my voice steely. "I trusted you, and you shattered that trust. There's no coming back from this." With those final words, I turned and walked away, feeling a strange sense of liberation wash over me. Behind me, I could hear the murmur of the crowd as they watched Bella's world fall apart in real time. Sophia joined me at the exit, and we walked out together, leaving the wreckage behind us. Outside, the night air was cool, carrying with it a sense of closure. Sophia glanced at me, a mixture of relief and exhaustion on her face. "It's over," she said softly. I nodded, feeling the weight of it all lift, replaced by the realization that I could finally move forward. We'd set the stage, exposed the truth, and left Bella to deal with the consequences of her choices. And as Sophia and I walked into the night, I knew I was no longer haunted by the past. I was free. As I walked out of the venue that night with Sophia by my side, the weight of what had just happened pressed on me, yet I felt strangely light. But as we left, Bella came rushing out behind us, her heels clicking against the pavement, her face twisted with desperation. "Alex, please wait," she called, her voice catching in a way that would have once made me turn around instantly. But tonight, I didn't stop. I kept walking, letting her trail after me like the ghost of our former life together. "Alex, please, just give me a chance to explain," she pleaded, her voice breaking as she reached us. I stopped then, looking back, and caught the frantic look in her eyes. Behind her, Mark had slinked out of the building, hesitating in the doorway as he watched her. Bella didn't even glance at him. She was fixated on me, her face a mix of fear and regret. "Explain?" I asked, unable to hold back the bitterness in my tone. "Explain how you thought you could keep two lives going, keep everything hidden, and still come home and act like nothing was happening?" She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Instead, her shoulders slumped, and her gaze fell to the ground. I knew that look. It was the look of someone caught, someone who knew there was no escape. For a moment, I almost felt a twinge of pity, but it was buried beneath the months of anger and betrayal. "Alex," she whispered, finally looking back up at me, tears brimming in her eyes. "I never meant for it to go this far. I felt like something was missing, like I'd lost myself somewhere along the way. I never wanted to hurt you." "Lost yourself?" I scoffed, my anger flaring. "So you found yourself in someone else's arms? You found yourself by lying to the people who trusted you most?" She flinched, her face crumpling under the weight of my words. But I didn't stop. The pain she had caused deserved to be acknowledged. She had betrayed me, and not just me. She'd betrayed the life we'd built, every promise, every memory. And now, standing here with her begging me for understanding, I felt like I could finally let it all go. "Did you even once consider what you were doing to us?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Or was it just about you? Your needs, your secret life?" Behind her, Mark shifted uncomfortably, clearly debating whether to step forward or disappear back into the shadows. Sophia, standing beside me, crossed her arms, her expression hard as stone. Bella cast a glance at her, then at Mark, as if realizing for the first time the full scope of her actions. She was cornered, her double life exposed, and everyone who mattered was here to witness it. "Alex, please," Bella said, taking a step toward me. "You have to believe me. I never stopped loving you." I shook my head, feeling the finality of it settle over me. "You might have convinced yourself of that, Bella, but love isn't supposed to hurt this way. What you did, it broke everything we had." Silence stretched between us, thick with tension and regret. Bella's tears fell freely now, and she made no effort to wipe them away. For a moment, no one spoke, and the world around us seemed to fall away. It was just the four of us, the betrayer, the betrayed, and the two people who had watched it all fall apart. Finally, Mark stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Bella," he said softly, glancing between us, "maybe it's best if we go." She shot him a furious look, as if blaming him for all that had happened, but he didn't flinch. His face was impassive, already bracing himself for the end. "Don't you dare say anything right now, Mark," she hissed, her voice trembling. He held up his hands, backing away slightly, but the damage was done. She had chosen him over everything she built with me, and now it had all turned to ashes. Bella turned back to me, her desperation breaking through her anger. "Alex, please don't end this. We can fix it. We can try again." I stared at her, The woman I had once loved, now reduced to a stranger begging for a second chance. But I couldn't offer her that. There was no going back, no repairing what she'd shattered. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight lift from me, as if years of heartache had finally been released. "No, Bella," I said, my voice calm and final. "We're done. There's nothing left here." She let out a quiet sob, covering her mouth as if to stifle it, but the pain in her eyes was plain to see. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there with Mark at her side and the ruins of our life together in her wake. Sophia stayed with me, walking in silence as we moved farther from the venue. Neither of us looked back. We had come to the end of this story, and there was no need to relive it. As we reached the car, Sophia reached over and squeezed my hand, a silent reassurance that I wasn't alone. I looked at her, gratitude filling me in a way I couldn't express in words. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. In the days following that night, life felt different, a strange blend of emptiness and relief. Bella had reached out a few times, each message more pleading than the last, but I didn't respond. I had nothing left to say. It felt as though a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying had been lifted. My thoughts were clearer. The constant tension I'd been living with was finally gone. I was free, and though the path forward felt uncertain, I was ready to take it. Sophia and I kept in touch, our connection deepening in unexpected ways. At first, it felt like we were two people bound by shared betrayal, helping each other through the aftermath. But as time passed, our conversations shifted. She was no longer just the person who had helped me confront Bella. She became someone I looked forward to seeing, someone who brought a calmness I hadn't known I needed. Our shared pain had transformed into something warmer, something real. A few weeks later, I invited Sophia over to my place for a quiet dinner. It was simple, with homemade pasta and a bottle of wine. But as we sat across from each other, sharing stories and laughter, I realized I hadn't felt this kind of ease in years. Sophia had a way of bringing light into the room, a soft, steady warmth that I found myself drawn to more and more. After dinner, we sat together on the couch, the comfort of her presence grounding me. "I never thought things would turn out this way," I admitted, breaking the silence. Losing Bella felt like the end of everything. But now, I don't know. I think I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. She smiled, placing her hand on mine. "Sometimes, we have to lose things to make room for something better," she said softly, her eyes meeting mine. There was a gentleness in her gaze that went deeper than sympathy and understanding, a shared hope that neither of us had dared to name. In that quiet moment, sitting together with the world outside fading into the background, I felt something I hadn't expected: peace. Days turned into weeks, and Sophia and I found ourselves drawn closer and closer. We spent our days exploring parts of the city we'd both taken for granted, laughing over coffee at hidden cafes, sharing long conversations about everything and nothing. It was as if a new life had opened up before us, one filled not with secrets and deception, but with honesty and trust. One evening, as we walked through a park bathed in golden light, Sophia stopped and turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "Do you ever think about what happened with Bella?" she asked quietly, as if hesitant to bring up the past. I took a deep breath, realizing that, for the first time, the memory didn't sting. "I used to think about it constantly," I admitted. "The betrayal, the lies, the years I spent not knowing. But now, no, I don't think about it much at all. It's like I've finally closed that chapter." Sophia nodded, a soft smile forming on her lips. "Good," she said. "You deserve a fresh start, Alex." "We both do." That night, as we stood beneath the stars, the weight of the past felt like a distant echo, a memory that no longer held power over me. I pulled Sophia close, feeling the warmth of her embrace, and in that moment, I knew I was exactly where I needed to be. The pain Bella had caused, the anger and heartbreak it had all led me here, to this new beginning, a chance to rebuild on my own terms. Months passed, and life took on a rhythm I hadn't thought possible. Sophia and I were no longer bound by the past. We were two people building a future, step by step. We found joy in the simple things: sunlit mornings, lazy Sunday breakfasts, the quiet moments of just being together. There were no secrets, No hidden lives. Just us, moving forward. One afternoon, as we were unpacking groceries in my kitchen, Sophia turned to me with a playful grin. "You know, I never thought my friendship with Bella would lead to all this," she said, laughing. I laughed too, shaking my head. Life's full of surprises, isn't it? Sometimes, you think you know what you're doing, where you're going, then everything changes. I paused, looking at her. But I wouldn't change a thing. Not now. She reached out, taking my hand in hers. Me neither. Looking at her, I felt a quiet gratitude, a sense of contentment that ran deeper than any thrill or rush. Sophia had become more than a friend, more than an ally. She was my partner in the truest sense, someone who'd walked through the darkest part of my life with me and come out on the other side, ready to help build something new. The journey hadn't been easy, and the scars of the past hadn't vanished entirely, but they no longer haunted me. They had simply become part of my story, a reminder of how far I'd come. Bella's betrayal had once felt like the end of my world, but now it was just a chapter that had led me to where I truly belonged. As we stood together in the kitchen, laughing over a spilled bag of flour and a poorly chopped onion, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel again, a deep, abiding happiness. This new beginning wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was ours. Together, Sophia and I had rewritten the story, turning pain into possibility, betrayal into trust, and an ending into a new beginning.